Why does your organization need a vCISO? Well, it may not. It may be that security is not a concern for you. It could be that your organization isn't using cloud resources or computing resources. It could be that, it's a landscaping business and you do very minimal IT in general, and you may just use QuickBooks Online and that's it, that kind of thing. In that case, a vCISO really doesn't fit your business model. Most businesses have some kind of compliance requirement, whether it's PCI for credit card processing, or HIPAA for healthcare, or NIST for government contracts. There's some kind of compliance in place. Lately, with car dealerships and other people that are doing financial products, the FTC safeguards, and similarly the FCC has the safeguards as well, applies to those. And so there's a lot of things to navigate. And most businesses, as they mature, have several of these they have to work with. They have a customer that's requiring ISO 27001, another customer that's requiring SOC 2, and then the government's asking for NIST, and then the payment card industry is asking for PCI, and and then their HR department has some PII that they need to protect, and there's a lot of things that end up making this, a bigger picture. And a lot of these controls and compliances overlap in some way. Some of the controls are similar, but it takes somebody who's used to GRC, which is governance, risk, and compliance, to wade through that and see what applies to you, scope it correctly for your company, and then, figure out how to apply those controls correctly. And then if there are any gaps, create a plan for remediating those gaps. But beyond compliance, a vCISO has a lot to do with risk to the business and cybersecurity in general. So without any compliance requirements, let's say you're a manufacturer and you don't do something that is a consumer product, so you don't have FTC to worry about. You're just doing a B2B thing and there's no real human safety component. There's no real, let's say it's just some, widget that gets used in bricks or something that's really, there's not really a whole lot of compliance requirements for. Cybersecurity is still important. Let's say you're a $10 million business, which, is very, is really a small business, and you may have 10 employees, and you do a little bit of ordering online, but most of the stuff is over the phone. But everyone in the office that's doing the quoting and the design and everything is using computers. And then you have, maybe a half a terabyte of data, which are designs, contracts, things like that. So what you need to consider is, okay, are those resources things that are easily replaceable? Are they things that we even need to protect? Because there's no point in wasting money on protecting resources that are irrelevant to your company. In fact, I would kind of work with you to get rid of those. Like old contracts, if they're not serving a purpose, get rid of them. Create a data retention policy and a data lifecycle around them. Now, most businesses have some kind of intellectual property that they want to protect, something that is a trade secret, something that's contracts that they don't want other people to know they have, things like that, as well as PII, customer information, employee information, social security numbers, etc., things like that they need to protect. And so there's the privacy aspect. And then a lot of companies, even manufacturers of bricks, have a lot of automation in their factory. And I've worked with a brick factory before that everything was PLC controlled down to the brick ovens and the conveyors and everything. And there was a system, an automation system that ran it, and that was mission critical. That server that an operator operated, if it had any problems, it would take down the whole factory. So, and their ability to make money, and made very large batches of bricks, and it was a lot of money that would be impacted if they're down. So in that case, a CISO helps you protect those resources, helps you identify the risks involved in your PLC network, in your SCADA systems. Are you following the Purdue model of security for ICS? Are there proper controls and security around those systems? Can somebody from the internet get on them? Can somebody from the street walk in and affect your systems? Can somebody accidentally infect them with malware and then take down your whole production? Things like that. So those are the kind of things that a security leader is going to think about for your organization, among a lot others. Everybody who receives email is getting phishing attempts and hack attempts. There's risk everywhere in the business. Any web apps you're using, any identities you're using could be leveraged against you. There's invoice scams. There's fraud happening. Now there's a third-party risk and insider risk. So there's a lot to deal with. And if you don't have a CISO and you're a small business or a medium-sized business, it's worth investing in a vCISO. So that's a virtual CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, that would help you identify the risks that you have and create plans and roadmaps around remediating them. And really, there's no such thing as reaching 100% secure, but you're trying to reduce risk. You have risk, and you're just trying to make sure that there's some kind of reduction happening over time. Yes, there's new vulnerabilities and new factors and new attacks, new threats and stuff that happen all the time. So you're looking for a general trend going down. Sometimes there's spikes and it does go up. Log4j comes out, new Exchange vulnerability, Fortinet vulnerability. But the thing that a CISO is going to help you do is identify those and then drive those risks down, bring them back down to a tolerable level again, and keep your whole organization getting to a risk posture that's an improvement instead of just accumulating this risk over time because they're not being addressed. So that's what a CISO or a vCISO will do. Now, CISOs, if you find a cheap one, they're usually $250,000 for a Chief Information Security Officer. For larger companies, $600,000, $700,000 a year is kind of standard. And then, Fortune 500, it's over $1 million usually, especially with equity and stock options and things like that involved. So total compensation can be over $1 million for a Chief Information Security Officer. So it's not cheap to just grab one off the street unless you have a larger organization. So a virtual Chief Information Security Officer or a fractional Chief Information Security Officer is the way to go for most smaller and medium-sized businesses. They just need somebody to give them attention one day out of every 2 weeks, or one day a week, or they need someone to help manage their compliance and improve their security posture, but they're not a full-time employee. They're just working with you along with 5 other clients. So that is really where a vCISO is coming in. Now, in larger enterprises that have a Chief Information Security Officer, a vCISO is important for executing on projects. So let's say the CISO is really busy with addressing items from internal audit, working on their SOX 404 audit, working on the next year's budget, things like that, and is really pushed and stretched to the limit. And then there's a new expectation, there's a new product that's coming out. Let's say, this enterprise makes satellites, and there's a new satellite system which is coming out. And they know that they need to apply ISO 27001 to that system. They need to apply SOC 2 to that system. They need to really make sure all their processes are defined and that there's security controls around those processes. And they're really scoping it to this system rather than the organization as a whole. But the CISO of the company has no time to deal with this. So you bring in a vCISO and say, okay, for the next 2 years, vCISO, you're working with our team on this. And there may be some compliance, some auditors, some things like that, some security engineers that virtual chief information security officer is working with, but he's or she is the one leading that charge, is the one responsible for that compliance and the risks and cybersecurity controls applied to that new satellite system. So that's where an enterprise can use them, a vCISO. When there's an initiative that the chief information security officer cannot take because they don't have the bandwidth, that's when they bring in some fractional chief information security officer or vCISO to help them out. And it's interesting, I always call them CISOs. A lot of people call them CISOs. Really, it's either way for me. It's potato. I'll accept either. But I've seen some spirited debate over how to pronounce. Anyway, that's my information about virtual chief information security officers and when to use them and how to use them. If anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out or comment. Thanks.